So in the last session, what did we learn? What was the topic in the last session? Bootstrap grid, very good. So we looked at Bootstrap grid. I said we wrapped up Bootstrap. Do you think we covered everything, or do you think it's practically possible to cover each and every concept in Bootstrap? No, right? So we covered the main areas of Bootstrap. Please remember, these are embedded learning sessions, right? So these are the sessions that are to help you in working on your project better, in creating a good front end for your project, in using the MERN stack better in your project. These are not the sessions where we go the academia way, where we go concept by concept, right? But we make sure that we cover important concepts. We cover the concepts that are required for you to answer questions that the interviewers might ask. So it's more interview specific, placement specific, and project specific, right? Now that doesn't mean we'll be skipping main concepts. How many of you remember me sending a CSS main concepts text file? Do you all know that I sent a CSS main concepts text file in the WhatsApp group? Yes, how many of you remember? Can you please raise your hand? Yeah, a few of you. Everybody, after each concept, I send a text file in the WhatsApp group, the file that has all the important concepts that have been taught, that you must know, right? Some of them might have been covered in the class, some of them might not, but some of them might be a little advanced too. So for all those who are yearning to learn more about a concept, after the end of one main concept, of any main concept, I share a text file. So there is a CSS main concepts, there is a HTML main concepts, and yeah, just the other day, I sent Bootstrap main concepts. So make sure you are good at understanding all those main concepts that I mentioned in Bootstrap, right? Go over them. Initially, at least 8 to 9 of the 10 concepts we have covered in class. One concept, I put it there as advanced concept. Now again, I'm not sharing the links there. You know, with ChatGPT and many other GPTs, I don't have to give you links to some of the concepts or to any of the concepts. You can go and check by yourself. If I find some concept really interesting and I think that you must know, I'll share it as a link in the WhatsApp group. All right. So that is all about the learning and what you must know and what we are sharing and whether it's coming across or not. Right. Now about last class, HTML, why, Java, CSS, why, Bootstrap. We have looked at it. We know how to add Bootstrap, don't we? How do we add Bootstrap to a page, please? Someone from that side? How to add Bootstrap libraries to our web page? How can you add, if you want to use Bootstrap in your web page, how do we add it? We add the CSS and JS files directly. You create folders. Inside that you have downloaded CSS and JS files and you add them. The other way would be, if you do not want to add them as physical files, what would you do to add Bootstrap to your web page? You know, web pages have to live on the net someday, right? So you can add CDN links directly, content delivery network links. I heard some of them say there, CDN link, you're right. So we have two ways of adding Bootstrap. There are multiple ways, but these are the main two ways. So I said, how do we add Bootstrap, all that, right? Now, moving on, I have a couple of questions. Now, these questions are specific to your projects and the work. You know, you'll add CDN links. That is all very straightforward way of working, right? One of your friends had asked last time, in the Bootstrap grid, I want to increase the size of the row in the Bootstrap grid, or size of the cell in Bootstrap grid. What do? By default, the container, then you have row, inside that you have columns. How many columns is a row divided in Bootstrap? 12, very good. So those 12 columns are there. Now I want that row or a particular cell in that to have more height than the rest of them, or that row to have more height than the rest of them. So your friend wanted to know, horizontally we are able to make sure adjust. Take 6 here and 6 there. 3, 3, 6, 3, 4, 5, like that horizontally we are able to do. But what about height? They wanted to know, so how do you increase the size of a particular thing? Horizontally we are able to manage using columns. What about the height, right? So you can add height in CSS style. There's the height attribute. So there are multiple ways of increasing the height of a row or a cell. You can add a height property to the CSS styling. You know where you have the CSS rules that you have set. You can add the height there. Or can one of you tell me, how do you increase the spacing between the content and the nearest wall? Space between the padding. Very good. So how do you increase the space between the container and the nearest container? Margin. Very good. So now you know increasing height, increasing that thing can be done in multiple ways. MT will add M and T. The letter M and T will add margin top. PT there. PE is towards the ending, padding. ME is towards the ends, right? All around. So like that, there are different ways of adding margin, padding, increasing the height and all. Let's all put that aside. Bootstrap is all about classes, right? You say class equals and say bg-primary, you get a color. I want to add one more class to it, like increasing the padding or something. So I give a space and add it. What about I have some specific styles of my own that I want to add to this one? Will I add an inline style tag? Style attribute? Not advisable. What will I do? What I would do is go at the top of the page, add internal style to that. Give a class. Give whatever properties you want to give and add that class here for your element. Again, I repeat, how do you add custom style to your web page? Not just Bootstrap, not just Tailwind, but if you have your specific style, your specific font, you don't want to use Bootstrap's whatever font that is giving font families, you have a special font. You don't want to use Bootstrap's colors, contextual colors, but you want to use some special color. What would you do? Go to the top of the page, in the style tag, add that color equals, you know, whatever, aquamarine or something like that, and then, right, aquamarine or something like that, and get that class into your element, right? Like h1, class equals to whatever properties you want to give, Bootstrap, give a space and give the name of your special class there, right? That is all, guys. Now let's move on. We are going to start JavaScript, right? So what about JavaScript? We all know JavaScript adds interactivity to the page. I told you how when we work in Bootstrap, if you comment out the script tag, any interactions on the page will not work. So that is the power of JavaScript. It adds dynamism to your page, right? So today's session will start with JavaScript. We'll learn how JavaScript and HTML work in tandem. Today's exercise is based on JavaScript and HTML. So I request you all to pay attention and understand what is happening. Now, what is JavaScript? Where all it is used, right? Now, how many of you here know AWS? That's good number for second years. Amazon Web Services. How many of you know Azure? Many of you know Azure, right? How many of you know TensorFlow? All those who don't know, make a mental note or a physical or a digital note and go back and look it up, please. Right? Don't look at it now. How many of you understand React.js a little bit or know, heard about BR full stack? This is a full stack course. You all know React.js. Express.js, right? How many of you know IoT, Internet of Things? Do we all know IoT, Internet of Things, that the term? You know, there is physical hardware that is being used there, sensors that are being used. So, there are libraries of JavaScript. So, why am I asking you whether you know this or whether you know that? I'm trying to connect. All these are using JavaScript, right? TensorFlow, you have a JS there. Express.js, React.js. The sensors, there is a JavaScript library. We'll come to that. Right? IoT sensors, there's a JavaScript library. The biggest thing, AWS, they have an SDK, a software development kit that they have ready for us in JavaScript. So, JavaScript is not just about JavaScript in MERN stack or in mean stack or some other stack. It is everywhere. So, knowing JavaScript is very, very important. Not just knowing, but then excelling in JavaScript. You must know JavaScript thoroughly. Right? Now, that is the reason why I'm insisting that you all understand this concept well. right? It's not just for this particular full stack class. Going forward, whatever you are going to use, let's say tomorrow you are going to use AWS services and you are going to create a virtual assistant, right? You are using AWS Lambda, okay? And then you are talking, it's been converted into text to speech, and then something is happening. There is a character on the screen that you are trying to move, right? A Maya character or a 3D model that you have created, and then you want that to move. AWS allows you to use JavaScript there for moving of those animated characters. So JavaScript, guys, is everywhere. It is not just full stack. Initially, when we made this PPT, we had JavaScript in the context of full stack development, but I realized that just having it in the current context of full stack is not that great. So these are all the main technologies on the left side. Okay, I'll share a screenshot of it later. You see, web development, React, Vue and all, web development backend, Express, mobile app development. Good to see that there? Mobile app development, right? You have React Native, desktop application. You want to create everybody by now understands a desktop application, right? A standalone application in your computer. You can use React.js, Electron.js, JavaScript's Electron.js, right? So Electron.js is a framework that you can install and build desktop applications like a calculator, anything that you want to build. Progressive web applications, applications that work both online and offline. You can still use React. Machine learning and data science, TensorFlow, JavaScript, real-time web applications like WebSockets. When computers are talking to each other without the internet, in LAN, using sockets, go there. Cloud and serverless, like I told you, AWS Lambda with Node.js. Google Cloud uses JavaScript, right? Azure Functions. Blockchain, one of the very interesting technologies that is totally off. It is not just a web stuff. We are not discussing just web. There's a whole new area of blockchain, right? In blockchain also, there is web3.js, ethers.js. When you want to talk to the Ethereum and other frameworks that are there, you can use libraries, JavaScript libraries, Web3 and all. Decentralized apps, dApps when you are creating, there's something called as MetaMask. It's a Chrome extension that understands JavaScript, right? Now, AI and NLP, Brain.js. IoT, Johnny 5 and Node-RED. These are all JavaScript libraries. Now, when I say JavaScript libraries, these are all, how you have Python and then you have NumPy or NumPy and you have other libraries, right? PyTorch. So that's all Python, but they are all libraries like that. Here, what we are learning is core JavaScript. Soon, we'll be using the libraries of JavaScript and working with them, right? Everybody clear? Are we all sold on the concept of JavaScript and why it is important? How many of you agree with me? You all think JavaScript is important. We are all good, right? Okay. Now, let's move on. Now, let's go back like a couple of decades back, okay? Let's try to understand, just for 2 minutes, why was JavaScript developed? I need all your laptops to be closed, please. We are not going to code for some time, at least another 5 to 10 minutes. So save your battery, battery power. So JavaScript 2.5 decades ago, right? You all understand Windows Explorer, File Explorer? You explore files, right? So when internet first, people found internet or created or discovered internet, all the computers needed to be on internet. So like you explored files, we used to browse, surf. I'm sure some of you must hear your parents or somebody saying, are you surfing net? Nobody uses that language these days. But browsing, surfing, exploring. So one of the very famous operating systems in those days was Windows. So Microsoft said, people are surfing net, people are browsing, people are exploring. Let us create an explorer for them to explore internet. That's how IE, Internet Explorer, came into existence. People started using Internet Explorer to explore internet or to surf internet. That came along with your PC, personal computer, right? The desktop and the whole CPU and that whole thing. So the computer came with Internet Explorer and we all used to browse, surf internet using Internet Explorer. It was very nice. I showed you some old websites also sometime earlier. We all were happy the way things were, right? But then this was late 1990s. So there was just static pages. They wanted the pages to be more dynamic, right? And there was this real big market share. Who's using this app more? Who's using that app more, right? So there's this really big company called Netscape. How many of you here heard about Netscape Navigator? Maybe not. It was long before you were born. So Netscape company said, we will not use Microsoft's Internet Explorer, but we'll come up with our own browser called Netscape Navigator. The company's name is Netscape. Instead of exploring, they said, we'll navigate you in Internet, so Netscape Navigator. So there was this guy called Brendan Eich at Netscape. Not there was, one of the very few people who are still alive. He's still there. So that guy, that person was given the task of creating a new language. A lightweight language that you could infuse into your web pages that the browser could understand so that the browser or the web page would become interactive. Explain again. Internet Explorer was all static pages. The pages they wanted to be better than Internet Explorer. They said, let's make our pages more dynamic. We allow users to click on the pages. We'll make the pages more active, more dynamic. We'll take input from the user. It will be stored on the server. So the page needed to be more smart, more interactive. So they said, let's use a language called a scripting language, very lightweight. If you look up the history of JavaScript, you'll see the whole story about LiveScript and the different names that were given. In those days, Java was owned by, Java was created at Sun. So Sun Microsystem was big. So they said, this will be like a younger brother to Java. Let's create a new language and name it as JavaScript. So JavaScript was created by Mr. Brendan Eich at Netscape company. That company, the navigator, the browser was not that famous. As developers, we had really big tasks. To get a web page to work similar way in IE and Netscape Navigator was really tough. Anyway, that went, the browser is no more, nobody uses that. It's not there, they've stopped it. But then, the language that Netscape created, the language that Brendan Eich created, you know where it is now. The last slide I showed you, how many people, how many systems, how many technologies are using that language. So JavaScript was supposed to be a lightweight scripting language that was to be used in your web pages to make the web page interactive. Done? But then, so that is how it all started. Then they said, the language also, you submit a form, the form would go to the server, a PHP page on the server or a JSP page. It would come back to me telling there is a hyphen in the username that is not allowed. Let's say I'm submitting a registration form, right? 2 decades ago, it would wait, go to the server. The intelligence was all on the server side scripting. It would come back again and say, you are missing out. There is a exclamation in your username, not possible. So with JavaScript came client-side validation. Understand everybody? Client-side validation. So you could validate the form on the client side. On clicking of the button, it did not go to the server. On the client, in the HTML page itself, you wrote script that checked for the validity of the page, and only if it was valid, it would go there. Otherwise, you would get the error here. I repeat, when you launch a web page, you see it in your computer. It is a .html page with script tag inside it, with all the logic inside it. So when you do a submit, it checks for all the validation. Only when everything is valid, it goes to the server. The information is sent to the server, right? So this was another step for JavaScript, client-side validation. It did not go to the server. So everybody, we were all very happy with client-side validation. The back-end force to the server were reduced. But then, JavaScript kept growing. Many people, the UI developers and all, started using JavaScript because it was very light when compared to Java, right? So over the years came ES6, ECMAScript 6, the big brother or the latest version of JavaScript. That's what we are using now, and I'll not bore you more with the concepts and the theory. We'll check those things out in a moment. So JS in current scenario, these three, they have been buddies since 1995. HTML, CSS and JavaScript. They have been together from those days till now. Even though JavaScript has moved on and there are many libraries like I showed you earlier, these three are still together and they work together. Now what is JavaScript? I don't know if the people at the last can see it. It's basically in your website, you have HTML, CSS and JavaScript, right? So those are that is the third element for your page, but it's basically a simple textual programming language. Use both. Nowadays, It is used both on client side, server side, everywhere. But originally it was meant only for the client side. Only in the HTML pages we would use. Now what we are doing today is also client side. When we get into Node.js, that's when the server side part will begin. But for the next, for maybe another session or so, we'll be working only on the client side part of JavaScript. It allows our web pages to make interactive. The history, that is the guy, Mr. Brendan Eich. He's still, good. He used to work for Netscape. In 1995 came JavaScript. In 2015 actually, 2015, the best version of JavaScript that we are using now was introduced. It's called, they named it ECMAScript 6. It is European Union of Computer Manufacturers, like European Computer Manufacturing Association, ECMA, ECMA, right? Now let me not go too much detail. I think you're all already restless and wanting to work on the code. So I'll not go too much into the history, but please make a note. What is ECMA? Why is JavaScript called ECMAScript 6? Those are just a bunch of rules, right? Now remember guys, not one company can come up and say, these are the rules of JavaScript. This is how it's going to work. When I say ABC equal to this, that is not how it is. The rules have to be followed by all browsers, right? You use Netscape, you use Internet Explorer or Edge, you use Opera, anything that you use, all the browsers should work in tandem, meaning they should all be on the same page, right? Not work in tandem, but they should all be on the same page when it comes to rules. So by 2018, full support for ES6 was available in all browsers, all famous browsers. But ES6 came into existence in 2015. Now what are the main features? You see on the left side, validating user input. These are the general JavaScript features. Let me give you an example. I have a form where I'm asking you all to register, right? And I'll make sure using HTML5 that you don't leave any field blank. I'll just put a required in my input, and automatically when you submit, you'll get a red thing saying this is required. This has to be an email. This has to be that. We know that, right? Input type equal to email, you say, automatically it will make sure it's an email address. I don't even have to use JavaScript for that with HTML5. But let's say I want all the roll numbers that start with 25 BD or 24 BD only to be submitting that form. Then I would have to write special validation. So on submit, I'll call a JavaScript function where I'll check, get that value from the field, make sure it starts with 25 BD or 24 BD. If not, then say you're not eligible or you're not allowed to submit or register for this particular event. Clear everybody? That is client-side validation. You validate whatever you want to do on the client side, so the form is not submitted to the server and it doesn't come back. You are cutting down on the iteration. People tend to think, in nowadays, client-side validation meaning none of the fields should be empty, email should have only email, username should not have that, but these days, with HTML5, you don't have to worry so much, right? You just give an attribute as required, you just mention the type as email, and all validation is taken care. Okay, greater control, platform independent, of course, right? In Linux, in Unix, in in Windows, in Mac, everywhere it's the same thing. Handling date and time is better, generating HTML content, detecting the user's browser and OS. Remember I told you about jQuery? I said JavaScript bundlement.js has something called as jQuery. That is the jQuery that we used to use to know which browser the user has launched. Even before you display the page, we wanted to check what is the browser, what is the screen size, all that. Because certain things did not work well in all browsers. So that intelligence, HTML does not have. That intelligence comes with JavaScript. So we would import that library and use an API. We would make a call to one of the functions and see what device is it. Is it a small device? Is it a big device? Is it a big computer? Screen sizes? All that. Detecting the user's browser and OS, right? Now the modern JavaScript, let const, the coding has become much more polished. The code that we wrote then was very crude. The code that we write now is much more polished. You used to write 4 lines for a function. Now I can write that in 1 line, right? We used to have 6 to 7 lines just to convert a particular array, remove duplicates. Now I can do that in 1 line. Take the array, convert into set, convert from set to array, all in 1 line. Remove all duplicates from the array. I think that is true in any language, right? Data structures, you all understand? How to remove duplicates from an array? Convert it to a set. Set does not take duplicates. So automatically all the duplicates are removed, then convert it back to array. Anyway, so many interesting concepts there. new array functions, default parameters and all. Now, the engines that we use, like I told you, right? Chrome uses V8 engine, Mozilla uses SpiderMonkey, Microsoft Edge uses Chakra, meaning the engine that understands the JavaScript, whatever you type in the script tag or in the script, that should be understood by your browser, right? Browser, how does it get that intelligence? It has a piece of software embedded inside. So what is that piece of software that understands JavaScript called? In Microsoft Edge, it's called Chakra, SpiderMonkey. So each of these companies created their own engine for JavaScript, right? So that. Okay. So you must be thinking this is all theory. Get me to the code. Let me write something. It might seem very, very silly now, understanding concepts. But remember, guys, not everybody wants you to look at your code. They also want to see if you understand the concept well. They also want to see if you're a good conversationalist, if you can talk about something. All these concepts, some of them could be your conversation fillers also. When you're talking to your friend, your cousin, your uncle, anybody, these all could be used as conversation fillers. So you don't have to, unless they ask you, it's not like they'll ask you in the interview, can you name the JavaScript engine? What is the name of the JavaScript engine that is used by Microsoft? Some of them might ask, but some of them might not. But while you're talking, you can use this information as a conversation filler, okay? So, but it's good to know, right? Like different browsers have different engines. It's not just the same. Now, V8 engine is what Chrome uses. A little bit more about V8 engine. I think you can all look it up. I don't want to bore you. It uses a JIT, just-in-time compiler, right? Now, what is this V8 engine written in? Guys, any piece of code has to be written in some language, right? This V8 engine is a compiler that understands JavaScript and does something. But it is written in a regular language, C++. Somebody asks you, V8 engine is written in which language? C++. So they wrote a piece of code, software in C++, embedded that inside your browser. So when you open up an HTML page with a script tag, that engine activates and then works on it. There. It's very simple. It parses, compiles and displays. Right? Object-oriented again. Now remember, in olden days when we first began, JavaScript was like any other simple language. There are just some functions and that. But later on, like I told you, with ES6, it became very strong. People started using this for many other reasons. So classes were introduced. So it became a object-oriented language. You can implement complex things in a web page without any issue. You can actually get media, 2D, 3D graphics, everything. Interactive maps. All that is possible using JavaScript. Now this is an age-old one. On the left side, you have a screen where client validation is not happening. So it goes to the server. Server rejects, saying the form has some special characters. It comes back. But on the right side, the form validation is happening on the browser's end only. It's not going to the server. So that 1-2 cycles are cut down. Now, where and how to code? Let's see this. Remember I said JavaScript engine is inside the browser. So, let me show you what I mean by that. Let me use something that we don't use. Okay, I do a Shift Control I. I like my web developer toolbar here at the bottom of the page. We know all this. Now, can one of you tell me what is this called? This tree structure here is called what? DOM tree. Very good. This is DOM tree, document object model. This whole thing is a DOM tree. Now, let me go to console. Here. You must be thinking, she keeps talking about script tag. Why is she showing this? I'm just showing this to you so that you understand that your browser is what understands JavaScript. Right? So I do a console.log and I say hello, prints hello. You all have already started working a little bit on JavaScript. So I'm assuming you know a little bit of JavaScript. Console.log is logging something onto the console. Right? This is the console. So I just said hello. Now you must be thinking, what is this undefined here? Right? It's not like I asked you to print something. If your command here does not return anything, it displays undefined. So my V8 engine in Chrome is now working on this JavaScript and displaying whatever I'm asking it to display, right? So here I go again. I'll create a var a1 equals to 10, right? Are you all able to see it? Okay. And then I'll say console.log a. Variables in JavaScript, it says a is not defined. Variables in JavaScript are what? Variables in JavaScript are loosely typed. You don't have to mention whether it's an int or a string or anything. Remember I told you JavaScript was created for a very lightweight purpose. It's for very simple purposes, and it's a very lightweight language. So there is no strong way of mentioning that you have to have only this type of variable. You just say it is var, right? I use an up arrow. I can use an up arrow and get mine, and I'll put an A1 there. It says 10, right? So I'm just printing it out. Now again, var A2 equals 20. And look at me now, I'm not going to do a console.log, I'll just say A2, meaning I want it to return. I'm separating my commands with a semicolon, guys. Don't worry, I'll paste this in a notepad for all those who are at the last. That's why I say occupy front seats. So A2 is equals to 20, I print, and now I don't see an undefined because this particular command is returning a value. Clear? Now you must be thinking this is all very simple. She's just typing a few numbers, var A2, A3, A4, right? 20, and I'll just simply say A3 plus A4, 30, right? This is the vanilla JS. I call it vanilla JS. Vanilla JS meaning the initial JS, where people used var. Okay? Now, with ES6, we do not use var anymore. In the next class, we'll look at what is hoisting, what is scope. Those are the two important concepts when it comes to ES6. One of the, one of the important concepts that you must know in the initial stages itself. We'll look at them in the next class. For today, please understand, we'll be using let const going forward. We will not be using var. Let me give you a quick example of what could be a. So, I would work on a particular web page with my team lead and 2 other team members. I would create a nice JavaScript .js file with all my code in it to check something, right? And I would add it in my web page. How do I add something to my web page? Script src equals whatever JS file, right? Now, my friend or my teammate or my colleague would also create a JavaScript file for another functionality. He or she would also add the same to the same web page. Are you all listening? So we have 2 different JavaScript files added to the same web page, one below the other. His before mine, he would have a var a is equals to or var num equal to 100. And mine also, without knowing that he is using, would have var num equal to 200. This was allowed in original JavaScript, the vanilla JavaScript, where you could declare it any number of times. That was a big problem. You remember, JavaScript was not meant to be this strong, just supposed to be a lightweight language. So it did not impose on, don't repeat variable declarations and all. So my code and his code would be using the same variable, and based on when the function was called, which is using that num, the whole thing would just go berserk, right? So what we have to make sure is to not allow, the creators of JavaScript realize we should not allow redeclaring variables. So that's when let and const came into picture. So what I'll do is I'll just copy this over and put it in a JS, put it in a simple file, and I'll share it with you later. How do you clear it? See this top symbol? You click on that and you can clear it. So let me show you what I just said. Var a is equals to 10. Oh, it's already, okay. A is equals to 10, and then var a is equals to 20. Guys, please focus the last quadrants mainly, right? Now I say console.log Let's see if it prints it. Printed 20 because var doesn't really care, right? Now let me do the same thing with let. Let A5 equals to 20 and let A5 equals to 30, and I'll just say return A5. A5 has already been declared. So never use var. If you are looking at some videos, YouTube videos, if you are looking at some code somewhere, you looked up something, not GPT, but regular Google lookup, and if somebody is using var, then they are very old-fashioned code. Do not look for that code at all, look at that code at all. Move on to the next link. Everybody clear? Do not look at codes or videos where they are still using var. That's a very old-fashioned way of working. We use let and const, which is the ES6, right? So here, this is let, it will not allow. So always use let and const. Now how do you do that? Like how I showed you earlier. Let A6 equals to this. Console.log A6, this will work, right? Similarly, const. You all know const. You all come from Python and C, so you know this. Const C1 equal to, let me show you this. Const C1. Very important thing to remember. We are going from variable declaration. You can't just declare const and leave it there. In JavaScript, you must initialize it. Again, everybody, use proper words. Don't say you must give some value. You must say const. No, don't use that language. Say you must declare, you must initialize. Practice the language from now on, please. Right? So, const C1 will not work, but const C1 equal to 10 will work. So, const should always be declared and initialized. Let can be declared and initialized later. You can't redefine or redeclare a let variable. You can redeclare, redefine, do whatever with a var. Are we all clear? Var, let, const. Var allows you to use the same variable name multiple times. Should not use that. It's old-fashioned way. Let does not allow you to do that, but let allows you to define at one place and declare, initialize later, or declare at one place, initialize later. Const is much more stringent. You declare a const variable, you give the value right then, right there. Now, I don't want to do CLS. I keep doing CLS, but you know, CLS doesn't work here. Use the stop sign to clear it. Right? Now I'm adding this code also. So this will be part of your day 10 code. Now, I have an interesting question for you all. After this, we'll move on to a proper HTML page. What do you think this will do? Let num1 equals to 15. Let num2 equals to 20. Let str is equals to check. Okay. What will num1 plus num2 plus, I hope the browser doesn't give away. What will this print? Num1 plus num2 plus str. Num1 is a number, num2 is a number, str is check. Real quick please, we need to move on. What do you think this will print? Go on. 1020? 1020 1520 str. Okay. On this quadrant, what do you think this will print? So basically, it all boils down to, will it treat all of them as strings? Will it treat all of them as numbers? Will it treat half as numbers and half as string? When does it use concatenation and when does it use addition? Okay. 35 check. So it goes from left to right, adds, the moment it sees a string, concatenates, right? Now, what do you think this will print? Let me just bring the screen down so you don't see the output. Num1 plus, I can't bring it any lower. I think it's giving away, but let's see. Check plus num2. I'll not type it, but num1 plus check plus num2. What will this print, please? We all know this, right? 15 check. Did I do? Let str is equal to check. So 15, and because I put a object in the middle, it did a object SVG element and 20 here. Okay. Let me just type it up. Now, while I am doing this, I want you to tell me, right, the same thing. I want you to tell me what will happen if I say console.log, or let me do the up arrow, right, call it as num2, num3, str1, and then here I am going to say str1. This is the interesting thing. After this we'll move on. What do you think this will print, everybody? str1 plus num2 plus num3. Check 1520. So the moment it comes across a string, it will treat everything else as a string going forward. But unless there is a string, it will treat everything else as number and go ahead. Now there are some interesting concepts around it about how when you have a number, how it reads, and when you do not have. I wonder if I can show that to you real quick. Maybe I'll just show you. Okay, now we have seen the plus operator, right? Let's quickly look at one of the very important operators in JavaScript. Again, I'll need your attention. Let me just copy this over. Control C. Okay, now let A7 equals to 10. I just want to check whether A7 is 10 or not and print something. A7 double equals 10, right? I'll say console.log true, right? Just print it true like that. Done? Let me go increase the size. So it printed 2. We all know A7 is 10, printed true. Now what about this? A8, I put it in quotes and check for A8. You see, what do you think it will print? Now I put 10 in quotes, still true. It is a string, still true. This is JavaScript for you guys. Very, very understanding language. What is the problem with a very understanding friend? Your friend doesn't mind even if you yell, even if you do something wrong. You don't know when you are not wrong, right? You don't know when you are wrong when your friend is never complaining. JavaScript is like that. It doesn't complain. It understands for most part, right? Mainly when it comes to variables. So we have to be careful. But there are times when you want your friend to be really true. Tell me if I am doing right in this presentation. So at those times like that, you want to put a proper check.
Yeah, Shirisha, I have a question here. No, I want to just reconcile that. Are you telling that the expression goes from left to right, the calculation?
Where when you're adding?
Adding or checking if condition, yeah, most probably the arithmetic operations. Does it go to left, from left side to right side?
Yeah, when checking, yes, when they're adding, it will do that.
Okay.
Not in terms of multiple expressions.
Yes. So that is one observation that you should make in other programming languages. Everything is done from right to left, but in JavaScript particularly it is from left to right. So that is only the calculation which is happening. Yeah.
Okay. Like I told you, you want your friend to be true and tell you the right thing sometimes. So here is a check. Something that is not very common. Triple equals to. Double equals will check only. This is an interview question. Double equals is checked for when you want to check for the value. Triple equals is used when you want to check for both value and data type. Very good. Value and data type. Triple equals. Only value, double equals. So that is that. Okay. Now let's move on. We don't have a lot of time. So I'll copy this over. I wish I can do a Control A. don't worry. I'm going to share all this code anyway with you, so you can practice it later. Now I'm only touching the main or important areas, guys. We still have a long way to go. I'll share all the links for learning more. So let's go ahead and start working on. So you can't always write code in console, right? That is just for you to show that JavaScript works in the browser, that the V8 engine is picking it up. But we have to write script inside our HTML page. How do we do that? Let's go. Second year in class.
Yeah, guys, one more thing here. You see double equals to and triple equals to, right? And this is commonly asked interview question. What's the difference between it and where it is used in real time? So please understand that. If you have any queries, please raise your hand. Because I have a question, but let me just see how many of you are clear. Okay? This is very important.
So I'm copying over day 9, renaming it as day 10. I'll remove everything, images and all that from yesterday's or from last class, and just have, oh, JS is gone too. So day 9, get the JS as well. I want to use Bootstrap going forward, always, so my pages look prettier. So I have CSS, right? Now here, I'm going to copy over. Everybody, we are starting to learn JavaScript, okay? What I did is I have CSS and JS for my Bootstrap, and I have a JS intro.html, which is nothing but our basic HTML page. Now I'm going to open this up, open with code. So in VS Code, in JS intro, here, script tag can be added anywhere in the page. In the next session, I'll show you what happens if you have code inside a function, if you have code open without any block or anything like that, open code, what will happen? How do you access HTML things? But for today, let's start off with trying to understand how from JavaScript you can manipulate your HTML page, okay? So let me start off with a div. I'll give this div a name. I'll say ID, or I'll give it an ID, my div, okay? And inside that div, I'll have an h1 tag. I'll say hello there, okay? And after this, I'll have a Bootstrap, a simple button, right? I want to have a button. So here is my Bootstrap button. Pick the A tag instead. Anyway, right? Input button, type equals button, and here I'll say click me, okay? And for this button, BG primary. Also in the last session, I saw people doing a live preview, opening it in the browser, and then showing it, please. The IP will be different. So always say go live, and then IP for go live is 5500. IP for live preview is 3000. So don't mistake this for that, okay? Now, hello there, it says click me. Now, our aim for the next 15 minutes is to modify this HTML page using JavaScript. How do we do that? On clicking a button, I want to change the text in this one, okay? So here I go, I'll just give it an ID and say my h1, okay? Again, what do I want to do? Let me write it here. Change the text in h1 tag to hello world, okay? On button click. Remember during the form days, we looked at how you can have different events for your form elements, right? So here I have my button, I have type is equals to button, right? How does event handling happen? These are all the events that I can perform on the button. So I'll pick on click and I'll say, now everybody please pay attention. On click equals, all lowercase, equals, here I'm going to give my name of the function that I'm going to use, right? So I'll say change h1 text. Okay, you see that? Parenthesis, this is a function. Now, we did not look at, but I'm sure you all very well understand how functions are written, right? We have seen in many languages. You have already seen C and Python, and by now you started working on your MERN-STACK project. You might know how to write functions. So here I am, function, the same name, change h1 text, right? Remember, I'm using vanilla JS for now. Change h1 text. Everybody, whenever I want to work on changing something, first I'll have to get hold of what I want to change. Then I have to use that, get its value and replace it with a new value, right? So let's see now. So function change h1 text, right? So get the h1 element and then always make comments, not for now but for later. Change the text in it, right? How do you get? Remember I told you about document object model? The tree is a DOM tree. So you say document dot get element, VS Code suggests always use VS Code, please do not type. Get element by ID. Do you remember what is the ID? Even if you remember, always go and copy it. Document dot get element by ID, in double quotes or single quotes, put it there. Now I have my element, right? So here, ideally I would write it all in single line, but for your understanding, I'm just making sure. So I got a hold of that h1 element and I'm storing it in a variable. Now I'll say h1 lm dot. Everybody, all the functions, all the methods, all the properties associated with this object will be displayed. You need to know how to read them, please. Okay? So text content is a predefined method for this tag. Okay? Dot text content equals. Now I'm going to hover over so that you understand what I'm talking about. Okay? You get all the, just going to hover over that. Okay? It says if you want to refer, you can go here, node, hold on. What does it take? What do they say? Is it a property or a method? It says it's a property. Method will take a parenthesis. Property is you set to it. So I say text content equals hello world. Done? Everybody, every element that I get from the DOM tree, right, has this text content as a property. Because it's a property, I have to set a property to it. If it were a method, I would have said dot, whatever, in parentheses I would pass the string, right? So now I said hello world. Remember everyone, if something doesn't work, there's no need to panic. It is good that it didn't work, then you can troubleshoot and understand why it isn't working, right? I like it when there are errors. That way you get to troubleshoot. So this is hello there. What happened? Hello world. Very simple, straightforward. I refresh the page, hello there. I click on it, hello world. Done. So this is the function. Again, let me repeat. What were the things that I did? I first created an h1 tag with an ID. Anything that you want to access in JavaScript, you must either have a class or an ID, right? I want to know you by your name, but in KMIT, you have your ID and you have your section or your class. I can't access you without your ID, right? Similarly here, in DOM tree, you need to give an ID to anything that you want to access. Again, for the elements in the page, on which you want to click or hover, or you can use any method, I used a click. You have to add the event. On this event, perform this task, change h1 text. So it's going to go and look up to see, is there a change h1 text? Yes. What is it saying? Get that element and change its text content. Now, next, I'm going to show you real quick how.
Just can you just show them the error if there is a missing in the function, if there is an error, how to debug? If you can just highlight that.
Yeah, sure, sir. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to remove my H1 and make it my H. So what did I do? I'm calling you by a different roll number. That's not your roll number. Refresh. So far so good. Click me. What does it say, guys?
Can you zoom it?
Cannot set properties of null. So this returned a null. I am trying to set property of a null to something. And you must all understand how to read the error. Where is this error happening? jsintro.html 14, 32nd character, line 14. Line 14, always very important. More than how to write the code, you should know the most important thing to know is how to troubleshoot and how to know your errors, how to read the errors, how to trace where it happened. Okay, so I'm going back. Ideally, I would have shown you so many errors, but we do not have that kind of time. So I have to go on with the ideal situation first and let you figure out the errors. Okay, next class on, we'll look at non-ideal situations and all also, but for today's exercise, you need to know how to manipulate DOM tree, so we'll move on. Right, now, what am I going to do? I'm going to add one more here. I'll call it H2, or let me call it H2 and ID as my H2, right? And here, or you know what, let me create a paragraph tag, okay? I'll say para and say my para, and here some text, or okay, one of my favorite lines, may the force be with you. So you have paragraph and my para. Now I want to have one more button, Control C, collapse as much as possible, keep things collapsed, save space. Here, change para text, okay? I go here and I'll say change para text, or I'll just say this should change, okay? I'm sorry, not this, this should say change para text above. Okay, that's me trying to be good with English. Change above para text. And what is the name of the method? Change para text. So what am I supposed to do, everybody? In my script tag here, I'm going to write one more function, right? Paste it, the name of the function. See, it doesn't mean I can't type it, but as much as possible avoid typing because they lead to errors, right? So here I'm going to do the same thing, document dot get element by ID, inside that a double quote and do a control space I did, so it's giving me all the variables, my para, right? Now earlier I stored it in an element variable, called on the element, now I'm going to do it directly, right? And look at what I'm going to do. I'm not using text content, I'm using inner HTML, right? B let's see what happens now. I'm adding a HTML content here. Document.getElement by ID my para. Inner HTML is this. Okay. Now let's see how it works. May the force be with you is the text now in the para. Force is with you. It has changed. It not only changed, but it became bold. You must be wondering, why did she have to do inner HTML? She could use text content. Let me show you what happens when I use a text content. Okay, simple things. Text content. There, right? I'll comment out this line. Again, everybody, first we change the text using button on click. Next, we not only change the text, but we made it bold. right? Then I said, why should I use inner HTML? Let me use text content only. Let's see what happens. Refresh. It has made the force be with you. When I click on it, it did show force is with you, everybody, people at the last, but it is also, for lack of a better word, spitting out the bold tags as is. The B tags are there as is. You see that? So when you say text content, it does not render it as HTML. That's why if you want a proper rendering, then you go with HTML. Understood the difference? Text content and HTML. Now, ideally I would give you 5 minutes now for you to work on it, and then we'll move on with the next way of manipulating. But I think we'll go on like this. Then I'll give you the complete code and you can work on it, either afterwards or after you're done with the exercise. Now, remember,
we have exercise or not today?
We have, sir.
But it is 10:45.
Yeah, that's what. In 5 minutes, I'll be done with whatever is. Half of what is needed for the exercise is done. A little more is there. Once that is done, we'll move on. Guys, exercise is a combination of what we are doing here. So you don't have to worry. You can finish it fast. Now, let me show you what I mean by manipulating the DOM, right? So, please look at this part carefully. There's no need for this div to be, my div, or that ID I'm not using anywhere. Let's move on. Okay. Here, I'm going to add a UL tag. Look at the screen, please. A UL tag, unordered list. Okay. To this UL tag, I want to add li, items on the fly. How do I do that? Let us see. Right? I want to have one more button. Let me collapse this. On click, add list item. Okay. So when I click on it, add list item. Right? So when I click on it, it should add an item on the fly to this list. Okay? So what should I do first? Anything that I want to access from JavaScript, I should give it an ID. Right? So I'll just say ID equals to my list. Okay? Here, I'll go ahead and I'll add my function, give it a name, there. Right? Now what do I want to do? I want to, everybody pay attention. I want to create a new element. So far we have never done that. Create an element, type li, okay, let new lm is that, right? This li I want to add to my list. So my unordered list, right? How do I get it? Same thing like earlier, document dot get element by id of, where is my UL? What name did I give? My list. Everybody, this is same throughout. 10 years from now, 15 years from now, you are working on JavaScript, you will do it in the same way. Give an ID, say document.getElement by ID, get that element, manipulate it, right? So I created a child element here, create child. I say child because li should go inside UL, right? Then get parent UL. Now, grafting, this is like that, append child to parent. How do you do that? My UI list dot append child, this new element. Okay. Now, once this is done, I'll share the complete code. You will have to figure out a small thing. I'll give you some time for that as well. You must be thinking, where is the UL? Right? It's not there because I didn't add any elements to that, right? Let me try adding one element, li, 1 or first. Okay, you see, it's there. Now, let me check click me, working, it changed to hello world. Change above para text, force is with you, changed. Add list item, is it adding a list item? Yes, but there's no text in it. Now, your exercise that I'd like you to work on is take the text from an input field and append. Understood everybody? Today's exercise, let me open up. Tantric. Meanwhile, let me share this code with you all, okay? So, jsintro.html I am going to share with you, and I am going to share with date and notes with you right now. I think more importantly, I need to share that. Hold on, in class, date and in class. Okay, everybody, we'll be sharing this in that drive like earlier. Meanwhile, what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this over, put it in Notepad for all those who want to work on it. Okay. Again, I'll get rid of all this. That is your script tag, everybody. I have 3 functions there for you like that. Okay, work on it. While you're looking at it, I'll share these files that we have worked on and start the exercise. Okay, give me 1 minute. Create an index.html, start working please. Do not type the functions, always use the IntelliSense and pick it. Okay, 1 minute. Please re-log in. If you are asked to log in, please re-log in. The exercise has begun. Please go look at it. Check the hint. I'm going to show you what we expect from you for the exercise. The exercise, as you can see, as the name says, is for you to create a to-do list. Right? A simple to-do list. Let me log in and show you what I'm talking about. You see that? Ideally, to-do list, add text in the text field and click add button. Just have to add text here. Click on add task. When you do that, the task should be added. Basically, I add wake up and say add task. It should get added as a UL here as wake up or LI here as wake up. I repeat, we need you to have a text field and a button. The test case for this is a text field. You must have a text field, input type text. You must have a button, input type button. When you type in the text field and click add task, it should add it like that as an LI item and display. That is all there is. Okay. This is the first level. Continue with this. We will be sharing the code with you in a moment, in about 1 minute. Then I'll tell you the next set of expectations from the code. What the ID should be and all I'll tell you. But first figure this out. How to take text from an input field and then add it as an element to the UL. Material section, and see if you are able to see the notes. We are trying to share the material using a new way, new to us. Can you all confirm if you are able to see material in material section? No? What do you see? Okay, let me Let me show you what we did. For this course, there is a course material option. In that, we have PS Embedded Learning 4. In that, there is a day 10 topic. Are you seeing it? Day 10. Get material. We have day 10 console code, DOM manipulation. You're not able to see any of this? Why don't I share it in WhatsApp for today?
Share in WhatsApp.
Yeah, I'll share in WhatsApp group. You can pick it from there. We'll figure out why it is not working later. We'll keep this exercise open, so you don't have to worry.
Hide పైన click చేయాలి. Show hide ఉంది కదా.
అక్కడ హైడ్ ఉంది చూడండి.
Oh, ida. Oh, well, looks like we just have to show it.
ఇప్పుడు కనిపిస్తుంది.
We didn't know. I'm new to this. So, do you see it? Can you refresh the page, please? I didn't freeze it. I unfreeze it. Can you refresh and check again, please? You get it, sir?
That's what I was wondering.
Me too, I didn't. Topic, day 10, get material. First one is test, you can ignore that. How many of you are able to see the material? Everybody? Excellent. So now you can get the code from there and work on this code. Remember, do not touch this HTML file. Create a new one, say exercise 10 or exercise 12 day 10.html. Work on that. Okay? Have separate file for your exercise. The only thing that you will have to, that is relatively new for you, is this. In your,
4-5 minutes.
yes, they'll finish it. Wherever we have add list item, you have to get the value from the input field. So you just have to say document.getElement by ID, that input field name, and then dot value. Okay? That is one thing. Next is when you are creating an element, li, how do you set the text to that element? Only two things. One, how to read value from the text field. You have to give it an ID and say dot value to get that value. Second, in create element, by default an empty element is getting added. How do you set the text to that? New lm dot see if text content will work. Just check text content equals, it's a property, right? This is all. Just one. I should not be giving you the answer. So go ahead, please. Read from the input field, create an element, then add it. Let me go to the dashboard. Let's see how many of you have submitted, how many of you are done. I see a few submissions there. It's still working, sir. Let me just leave it there. We'll wait for another 5 minutes or 10 minutes for you all to finish. Meanwhile, let me get you to the next hint. Give me after 5 minutes, I'll let you know what exactly we are expecting. Guys, you're not able to see the code that we just shared in the study material. The HTML file you're able to open. Guys, looks like the HTML file that I shared with you, that one is has been changed for some reason, because maybe it's because of the extension. So I'll just add it as a text file, okay? So I'll just say DOM manipulation text, right? And then I'm going to go here. I know, so it's okay. So DOM manipulation, I'll just edit this. Files.
Click on correct file.
I'm going to update it, okay? Give me 1 minute. Everybody, I'm going to share the code again, this time as a text file, okay? Sorry, we should have checked this sooner. We're doing it on the fly now. Kindly check and tell me if you're able to see. When you click on DAO manipulation now, you should see a text file. Are you all able to see that? A text file, not an HTML file. Fine? Go ahead, please. Now, once you get your code working, for your exercises or test cases to pass, this is what we need. Everybody, please look at the screen for 10 seconds. We need you to name the text field or give the ID to the text field as task. ID should be task. The UL, the empty UL that you are going to create, for that the ID should be task list, like that. I'll just explain this and leave it here. They can work on it on Wednesday also. Wednesday, we'll open this up again. The task is supposed to be test task. The first task should be test task. Okay, that is it, guys. Please practice. Again, we have very less time. We are trying to squeeze in as much as possible.